Thank you. Thank you. Got a little bit of a dry cough, so don't worry. I'm nothing that's contagious. Um, we call this creative level up because we're living in an important time in our history where organizations and other people are now beginning to see the need to assist artists and educate artists in a way that they've never done before. I was fortunate enough to come through between the years 1980 to 2005. That was called the golden age of African American artists because it's the first time that artists became, um, it was a major art revolution that took place that nobody coined a phrase for. Okay. If you can remember the Good Times era, if you can remember the Cosby Show era, there was an explosion of art that happened right around that time. It was a mixture of exposure to African American imagery, and it was a mixture of media with things being projected on television. Okay, if you can think back to the Good Times era with JJ and his work, whose work was by Ernie Barnes. That's right. That was an important era because if you can imagine me as a young artist looking at TV and seeing a young black man who was trying to find his way as an artist. That was pivotal because I had never seen any representation of me prior to that show. Okay. The big thing that happened with that show is that we saw the artwork, we accepted what was happening with that particular character. But imagine if Michael was the artist, imagine if Thelma was the artist, imagine if the mother was an artist, imagine if the father was an artist. So when Norma Lillo took the chance to project that image, it really set. If you fast forward not many years to the Jefferson Show, most of you remember that, but the Jefferson Show missed an important mark in that George Jefferson didn't have any art on his walls. And if it was furniture-based art. It was not, and art was never the focal point on the show. Okay. The next generation again was the Cosby Show era. And that was an important era because now all of a sudden we saw a multitude of family living in their best life, artwork all over the walls, and two things happened. Good Times era, you could not find that work. It was not readily accessible. By the time the Cosby Show came out, printing had went through a major art revolution, a printing revolution, which made it more accessible. And so with the Cosby Show, a lot of that work was accessible in a way that it wasn't doing, because that whole movement could have started 10 years prior. Okay. With that explosion and that accessibility, we began to seek out having things that were a reflection of us on our walls. And it was a revolution that, again, really changed what we see. And a lot of things we see now depicted in African American art are primarily based on those two movements. A lot of people played a role in making sure that that movement was fruitful for 20 years. I'm talking pre-internet, pre-social networking. You're talking about an influx of artists that had to fast track learn to keep up with what was happening with this business. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of back story to what actually happened. This presentation right now is for all artists. I don't care what level you're on. These are some of the things we have to contend with today. Okay? Read amongst yourselves. I'm not going to go ahead and read it, what you see. If you can keep up, if you got questions, we're asking towards the end. But this is a discussion exploring the basics of artist marketing and promotion, which is at the key of what I'm dealing with right now. It talks about social marketing presence, which some of you are either alienated by or trying to figure out how you fit in that, or totally alienated by it. Okay. But it talks about basic branding and product development. We have things that we're dealing with today as artists that we didn't have to deal with when I was coming through in the 80s. Okay. You are a small media agency now. Think about that. We'll talk about that a little further into it. This is the best time in history to be an artist, y'all. The world is more connected. The internet has plugged us in. You are no longer regional unless you want to be. When you set up your internet, when you set up your website, you are now an international commodity based on how you present yourself in that environment. Okay, you got social networking, we got Facebook, we got Facebook. I know that's the old people's app now. Y'all don't use Facebook, but yeah, don't be upset, sir. You understand what I mean when I say that, because the younger kids don't use Facebook. Okay, they use Instagram, they use TikTok, they use a bunch of other profiles. But if you are an artist, if you're relevant, I love Facebook because my demographic is there. Okay, So, but that's the way that they break down. So you almost have to use both. We'll talk about that as we go. But to lend that, this is the most exciting time to be an artist in America. Okay. There are more resources and tools available today. There's software, there's digital tools, there's courses, there's you can go on YouTube and find an explanation for just about any subject you want to look at. We have information really now at our fingertips. And there's also a growing appreciation for the voices and the perspectives of the people now, like never before. And so when you put that together as an artist, where usually you would be painting for your community outward, it's a little different now. Again, I'll say this is the most exciting time to be an artist. This is the most important starting point. Stand on integrity. I have two presentations. The first presentation is a come to Jesus meeting where I tell you what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. I'm showing you the advanced one because it shows you some of the things you can take advantage of. But this is what it all stands on. This is a relationship-based business. Did you hear the word I use? Business. Reputation is everything. Sometimes we're so busy trying to get recognized and seen and you want your work to sell that you don't realize that the base of that, people are buying a part of you and your personality. And so as introverted beings, sometimes our personalities may not be in the right position when we start doing the art business, but that's something you learn as you go along. Realize that your collectors had to be fed by your information and your creations. That is the key difference now than when I was doing this 30 years ago. We had to fight for every point of visibility. Now, if you want to see everything, it's on the internet. It's crazy. It completely changed everything. But realize that your collectors must be fed by your information. Now, relevance is not determined only by if you're in a museum or a gallery. It's by your reach online. We're here to demystify the term promotion and marketing because everybody thinks those two words are the same. They're not. They work in tandem. Promotion refers to a variety of actions intended to raise greater awareness or advancement of an item or entity. Okay, that's the key difference between promotion. Okay, 5 keys to commercial promotion. You can kind of follow these. Jot down the ones that are important to you. If you all don't want to jot down, you want to enjoy the presentation, you can. All of this is on my YouTube channel if you want to go back and reflect on some of these things. There are a few basic skill sets for artists to develop as a firm foundation to the identity you're building as an artist or efficiency of expanding your reach. Branding is an important part of it. It wasn't a word we used to use, but now it's part of everything, everyday language now. And so how many of you understand basically what branding is and how many are confused by what branding is? Okay. Build a professional online presence. How many of you have a website? Hands up high, please. All right. The biggest mistake I see with today's artists is that most of them do not have websites. I do not understand that, but this is not a reprimand program. You cannot be viable in this day and time if you do not have a website. If you do not have a website, you are working 3 times harder than you should, and you're talking and explaining 3 times harder than you should. But create a website. Right now, they're pretty user-friendly. You got Wix, you got Shopify, you got all these people now probably in your email box screaming at you to sign up, and you're apprehensive. You don't want somebody else to take it over because you don't want that control thing. Then you don't have the technical knowledge to do it yourself, so you kind of get your name, but then you get stuck, or you're scared that you're going to make a mistake. I don't believe in mistakes. I believe in trial and error. I say you put one up, it's going to do what you want it to do. If not, then you're going to find other ways to improve it. That's way better than not having a website at all. Leverage social media. We talked about that. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is one that's a sleeper. TikTok. Share your creative process as much as you can on those media. A lot of people now are shooting their food, shooting their vacations. As an artist, you don't have that luxury. You should really be showing your artwork. The biggest mistake I see with most artists that are online is that don't even price their work. They just show the work like they're saying, nah, 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 this is what I did. But you're not saying this cost 250. You can, here's my cash app, here is my whatever. This is a 1 point, 2 point perspective situation, y'all. People have their credit cards sitting by the keyboards most of the time. But remember, you got to leverage social media. That's very, very important. How many of you now don't like social media? We are an introverted group of people. We're antisocial by nature. So most of y'all now, how many of you know your numbers? How many know your Facebook page number? How many of you know your Instagram number? How many people are following you? How many people know your LinkedIn? How many of you are using TikTok? It's a lot of people in here and not enough hands going up. You see what I'm saying? So this is so very, very important. If you're trying to figure out why things are not coming together yet, it's because you're working too hard. Now, some of y'all that's not doing this don't have a website either. I'm checking the names and I'm checking the faces and the hands as they go up. So if you're not have a website and you don't have social networking, what are you doing? How do you expect anybody to see you? Network with a purpose. 10 art fairs, exhibitions, workshops, connect with other artists. That connect with other artists is so important, y'all, okay? The biggest lesson I learned is that by having 5 artist friends, I was no longer crazy. I had 5 friends that weren't artists. I spent more time justifying or trying to explain who I was to them before I could even have a conversation with them. Whereas when I started to embrace my artist friends, we had a space, communication, and other places we could exchange. So keep that in mind. That one in the middle is so important. But your relationship with collectors and galleries is a relationship-driven business. You cannot and will not be doing this alone. But you have to try to put tools in place that are going to benefit you so you can expand your reach. That's most important, y'all, expanding your reach. Tell your story. I know, y'all private. There's some people really out here to watch. How many of y'all are familiar with Charlie Palmer? Raise your hands. How many of you are familiar with Kevin Wack Williams? Great. How many of you are familiar with, I give you a list of artists, but watch them first. See what they're doing. Look at how they show what they're doing on their pages now. They're doing videos. They're showing their process. Every one of you as an artist has a story, but you're keeping it to yourself. Doesn't benefit you. How many collectors do I have in the room that have my work? Thank you, and I appreciate it. I got my boy right here. My very first show was with that man right there. Don't let him fool you. That's a bad dude right there. Lamar Wilson did my first big show here in Atlanta City. In Atlanta. Tell your story, y'all. That's most important. It makes you relatable to the people that you're dealing with. It sounds so easy, right? It really is that easy. How many of you call yourselves shy? How many of you can't stand public speaking? And I hate this term, but it's so appropriate. This is a safe space, y'all. But come on, what you doing? What are you saying? So you think your paintings are going to say everything you needed to say? It's not. That's one perspective. They can write their own story to that when they're standing in front of it. They have to be sensitized to it to engage in it anyway. Now, you're standing there and you're saying nothing or hiding in the back until they leave, or your work is not on the walls anywhere. Which one would you rather be? Seek opportunities. How many of you participate in grant cycle situations that you're trying to apply for grants and all that? Raise your hand high so I can see. This is Atlanta, so I like to see what the marketplace is like. Okay. How many of you participate in art competitions? Do you even know they exist? That's an important one. You have to be proactive in the ways that you get yourself out there. And the more you do it, the more confidence you're going to gain along the way. If you stay stuck in this introverted space, it's very, very comfortable. It's deceiving y'all. That comfortable space is also the perfect ingredients for depression. See, nobody told me that when I started into this business. I'm telling you that now while we're talking about marketing and being seen and all this stuff. There's this other side of why you are doing what you do. It's a reason why you have that ability anyway. God is speaking to you. He wanted you to have a place to go, to have a voice, to be able to express yourself, even if you don't say it. But then that's the therapy part of it. How many of y'all getting your therapy regularly as an artist? If you don't, it leads to what? Depression and creativity are polar opposites. Keep that in mind. Maximize your exposure. These are going to be kind of quick. I'm going to go through them. If I need to explain it, I will. Understand the power of participating in group shows and exhibition opportunities. It's so important. It's a safe space for you because you'll get to show with other people. But if you're not getting a solo opportunity, which is the polar opposite of that, then what are you getting? So either you're being represented by somebody or you're not. Either you're doing vending or you're showing your work or you're not. But the group show single-handedly is the most fruitful way to get things going. Because what it's going to do, it's going to launch you in an environment of other artists. Sometimes you're talking about 15, 20 artists together, and when y'all have y'all reception, y'all going to be bumping and talking to each other. You're going to be feeling good. You're going to get motivated. You're going to hear about another one, and then next thing you know, you got 2 opportunities. You should be having at least 1 opportunity per month if you are a professional artist. Or if you're just an emerging artist, you should be having 1 event a month. Know the difference between an exhibition opportunity and a selling opportunity. That's different as an artist, because if you go set up in everything and think you're going to sell at everything and you don't sell at everything, you're going to think, what? Something's wrong, right? No, sometimes it's an exhibition opportunity. It's to show your work, to meet with people, to discuss your work. And then there's a sales opportunity. It might be an art sale. It might be a show that's driven directly for sales. The two are different, should be handled different, but I'm saying as an artist, you can't think that they're all the same because they're not, and you'll be setting yourself up for disappointment if you're in the wrong place with the wrong mentality. Develop and tailor an annual schedule of exhibitions, art shows, and other vending opportunities. So crucial. How many of you do 12 events a year? How many of you do, oh man, y'all didn't raise your hands on 12. 8 situations a year. 6 situations a year. I'm talking about any combination, whether it be an art show, a vending opportunity. 6, all right, 5, 4, 3. Oh, don't be scared now. 2. If I say 1 and everybody's hand don't go up in here, I'm leaving. But do you see what I'm saying? So essentially, y'all creative walking zombies. And you're waiting for an answer to fall out the sky, and it's not falling out the sky. And you feel unplugged. The whole goal is for you to get plugged and understand how to get the momentum going. Did I say fast momentum? Did I say slow momentum? I said momentum. If you have no momentum, that means you're doing what? Moving. No momentum means you're standing still. Schedule your own annual art event or studio show and investigate pop-up opportunities. How many of you do 1 show a year where you just show your own work? You rent a space, you borrow a space, you set your work up, you invite your friends if you got any, your family if you got any, and your friends if you got any. That one is an important one. Everybody in here should be scheduling 1 event a year that's just about you. I don't care if 1 person show up. You got to be willing to put yourself out there. The pop-up opportunity was one of the greatest things that happened in the 1990s. It gave everybody an opportunity to look at a space, convert that space into an exhibition space. It's a term that we use readily now, but now that means you can find somebody that has a space partner with them to do a show, and now you can do a solo opportunity, whereas you would have waited years for people to ask you, to invite you to come. But you still got to put yourself out there in order to take advantage of that situation. That's a big one. Participate in all media opportunities, including podcasts, TV interviews, or any video opportunities. Always request access to all media for future content. How many of you are have sat for a podcast before? Everybody should be somewhere in there. Okay. What about TV interviews? How many of you participate in TV interviews in this area? Okay, got one hand up. That's important, y'all. The media piece is important. How many times have you been interviewed by somebody? That's about 3, 4 people. And how often when you do that, do you ask them for the content that they shot? Okay. That last one is important because now we have to be responsible for our own content. In the case of me, everybody and their mama want me to come on a podcast with them. And I do it. But the contingency is that they share the content with me. That gives me a way to repurpose that content. Okay? It's mandatory because now they're not paying you. Now they can give you an invitation to do a podcast, and you ain't thinking, you just, oh my God, I'm glad they're calling me in. They want to hear what I got to say. They ain't paid you, but they're getting your intellectual property and your ideas, and they can broadcast it any way they want. So why shouldn't you be able to ask for it? As a matter of fact, when I'm making my deal to do it, I'm locking down getting it before I actually say yes. Makes my work easier, and I'm not working backwards. Branding is the process of creating a distinct identity for a business in the mind of in the minds of its target audience and the public. It involves shaping an emotional and a physiological connection with people. Okay, that's what branding is. If I say to you, golden arches, how many of y'all know what that is? That's branding on overload. Okay? If I say just the word Coca-Cola, what color do you see? You can do it in your sleep. That's branding. Okay? Branding is essential for competing in an industry category. That means that you have other people doing the same thing you're doing, but your branding is going to separate you from everyone else. My nickname is Poncho. It is not my real name. It is not my legal name. It is a pseudonymous name that only appears on my artwork. So if a brother from Baltimore can sign his work Poncho and make the whole world understand what Poncho is, then y'all could do whatever you want to do. But you got to start being repetitive with it. I tell all young artists right now, if you're a young artist, you got 5 signatures and you don't even know it. How many of you have a stable signature on the bottom of your artwork right now? How many of you haven't found it yet? Okay. You find that quick. When people look you up, what are they going to look for? They're going to look for a logo. They're going to look for your company name. They're going to look for your initials. How are they going to access you in this new world that we're in? Throw out some answers. How are they going to look for you?
Your logo, your name.
They're not going to look up your logo. They can't. They're going to look up your signature. They can't find your signature.
Your work.
Your work, that's one thing.
Your name.
Your name. And what artists typically do to comfort themselves is they become a company. And they market that company for 10 years. And then they realize that when person's going to look for them, they have to put in their name. So the sooner you switch to your name, you can still keep the company, but don't get lost in your company. For those of you, and this is not the rebrand. Rebranding is really up to you. If you're using the initials right now, that's difficult. If you have a cute logo, unless you're Kababi Bayak, he's been doing his signature that way forever, so people know it. He's made it the double arches. Poncho's signature is something that I have made people remember, even if they don't understand the style, because I do multiple styles. That's what you got to work on. But the first thing is to find out what it is. And once you lock on it, you have to use it repetitively. Okay? 5 basic keys of branding. There are a few. This is boring, y'all. This is it's repetitive. It's repetitive practices you have to do to build your identity, and it separates you from everybody else. But it's repetitive. It's repetitive. I'll say it again. It's repetitive. It's redundant. But that's what makes it stick with people. And if you get used to using it on a steady basis, you'll increase the chance of people beginning to recognize what you're trying to do. Okay? In addition to your work. See, we're talking about you as an identity now. We're not talking about your art and how it connects to that identity yet. Some people in here, like Mrs. Stacey Brown, when they see his work, you automatically know that's Stacey Brown. That is a form of his branding. Okay? You can't deny that when you see it. But a guy like me is confusing. I might have 6 styles. How would you keep track of me? There's some similarity if you're familiar with my work, but then there's a part that isn't similar. But the signature, you definitely will see repetitively, okay? Define your unique style. Your art should reflect your personal vision and style. Too many artists now are chasing down a style rather than letting the style chase them. You're looking and you're copying and you're being influenced by, and you're not breaking off that road to figure out who you are as an individual. And a lot of artists get caught in that rut, particularly now because, see, y'all get feeds from everywhere. You're getting feeds right in your phone, in your face every day. Artists outside this country are using our Pictionary. I mean, what's the one? Pinterest. They're all Pinterest artists. They can work from a phone. They can pull up everybody's work in Pinterest and they can duplicate that work. That's how it's being done now. Some of y'all Pinterest artists don't want to admit it because you're looking for subject matter. Back when I was there, a popular book came out. We all bought that popular book and we all did renditions of that piece. Oh, I hated it so bad. But now you don't have that. But what that also means is that what are you actually looking at now? And we'll talk about AI and how that influences things too. But developing your style is so important. We talked about that one already, didn't we? And it got almost quiet in this room. And I'm gonna tell you, I travel all over the country. I've been to all the major cities. I've done this lecture in front of other artists. I expected more hands to be in the air for Atlanta than the amount of hands that I see. I'm not reprimanding, I'm just letting you know what I see as I travel. So that means you guys might be slightly behind what other artists are doing, and that's not your fault. It is now that you understand that we are behind, then there's certain things you got to do to correct that. And it doesn't take a lot of time to correct it, okay? That online presence is going to change everything. How many of you, this is so funny. I talk to artists now and I say, hey, what's your name? My name is Robert Johnson. Okay, go buy robertjohnson.com. It's gone already. It's hard out here now to develop the whole thing. You know, some of y'all have got cute names where instead of the word kiss, you use a K and a Q and an E and a U, and you wonder why people can't keep up with you, okay? But you got to have a strong online presence. That includes from your buying your website name all the way through. Very, very important. Utilize social media platforms. How many of you use LinkedIn? LinkedIn is the one I probably use the less, but LinkedIn is what I call a validator. If you're on LinkedIn, they see you as a viable entity in a way that they may not see you as a viable entity in any of the other ones. So make sure you have a LinkedIn, even if you don't use it. I very seldom feed it. I will sometimes share things that will go immediately to it. How many of you using Twitter or X? Black community is really falling off on X. Don't worry about it. I got an X up too. And my stuff trips down to X. I may never open X, but it's still up. Do you hear what I'm saying? So it's not a matter of how you feel about each one of those places. When you're on social networking, how many of you got less than 200 people in your as friends on your Facebook page? Be honest. How many of you got at least 1,000? At least 500? 2,000? 3,000? 4,000? 5,000. $5,000 is the max for a personal Facebook page. Okay. And then after that, you get a business. How many of you have a personal and a business Facebook page? You have to have both. The one thing about having a business Facebook page in conjunction with your personal page is that there is an endless amount of people that can follow you in that environment. How many of you have that's 1,000 on Instagram, friends? 500? 2,000? 3,000? 4,000? 5,000? Okay, I got a good scheme of what's happening in the room. All of y'all behind. Your Facebook page, personal Facebook page, should be maxed out. It should be 5,000. If you don't, then that means you're sitting there going, I don't want that one in. I don't want that one in. Maybe. Some of y'all haven't even let folks in the room. It's not your mailbox outside your house, y'all. They're not going to stalk you. And if you're trying to get exposure, then you want to open that floodgate up more so that more people can see the work. Understand what social networking is doing for you first before you alienate yourself from it. It's single-handedly the biggest mistake you're going to make in your career. Develop a cohesive visual identity. Consistency, remember that word I was using? In your visual elements, such as your logo, color palette, typography, helps reinforce your brand. How many of you have a particular color that's used with your logo? Oh, good. How many of you have a company logo? How many use your signature as your company logo? Okay. Stacey Brown, you see Stacey Brown's hand went up. He's got it. He answered that question. The signature as your personal logo is a shortcut because you're not only you're showing your signature repetitively, and that's why Poncho is where it is now because I use it on everything. I'm sick of my own name. But you have to be that way about sharing it. It's the only way to keep it. If you're not going to get out and speak and open your mouth and get in the shows and be out here telling people what you're going to do, then you better surely be as consistent as you can be on the social side of things. Engage with your audience. I'm terrible at engaging with my audience. I'll admit that. I do not like anything online. I don't want nobody, I don't make comments about anything online. I really don't care, to be honest with you. I just want to, now I'm part of the same family, but internet, the social environment is like taking a stack of 3,000 cards and throwing it into a room and slamming the door for me. Whoever's going to get it's going to get it. It's not me going in a room with 3,000 people. And so y'all acting like you're going in a room with 3,000 people. Remember those business cards. Start using social so you can get the residual of that. If you got 5,000 personal names on your personal site, you got 5,000 on your business website, and then we start talking about other things, you now have an audience of people that's following you, that you can purchase your work at some point. Adapt and evolve. Artists are the most rigid people. The world is basically opening up for us right now. More people are trying to do more to help us now than ever before. And I'm going to tell you how I noticed it. I started working with organizations that was offering me a 70-30 split. What does that mean? They were going to pay me 70%. They were going to take 30%. When I was coming along, everything was 50-50. Everything. I don't care what they was doing. They was taking 50%. But when you see that trend is changing, there are other signs that it's changing, but guess who's not changing? The artists. Y'all, we got so much happening right now that it's probably dizzying. But if you're sitting still and not taking advantage of this, the fault is yours. It's not your family's. It's not that person you said is not supporting you. It's not your friends and family. It's you. Your job now is not only to create these images, because after you do these images, you get your therapy. That's the most important part of it. But the other side of it is that, why can't you sell it? Who said you couldn't sell it? Why is there an anxiety to selling it? And then we have to change that paradigm as much as we can, because you'll be surprised you're not by yourself. Many of your colleagues are feeling the same kind of feeling. They don't know what to do with it. Quick branding prep. Purchase and control all derivatives of your identity. Invest in com, net, and .art, because that's going to be coming up soon. Make sure to check for your name availability as your first search. Most people will do their company name and don't think about even doing their own name. If your name is Robert Johnson, you can't just, that's going to be gone. I hope your middle initial is Z. Because if you have a common name, it's more difficult for you. If your name is not as common, then it's easier for you. But you still got to move. Because now when you go to GoDaddy or these other search engines to check your name, there's a whole group of people out there watching you check for that name. And when you look for it the first time, you go, oh, it's available. And it's only $12.99. And then when you go back next week when you thought about it, it's $69.99. Yep. You got to buy it from them. Yep. Poncho now sells for $7,000. I ain't buying it. Because I have taken the time to brand what? Larry Poncho Brown, Larry Poncho Brown, Larry Poncho Brown, repetitively. I own the com, the net, the org, and the .art, because I don't want anybody to get close to those derivatives. This conversation becomes more difficult for you if you have a common name. And you have to really think about that. And when you're talking about your branding, you got to start from the bottom up. The internet name is going to be so what I've seen people do is they've used artist as an extension, Robert Johnson artist to break it up. You want to try to find the simplest one, but once you get it, you're going to use it till you're blue in the face. Okay? But checking for the other derivatives of your name is very, very important. Develop your signature or logo. Make sure that it is updated and use them with fierce repetition. Did you hear what I just said? Fierce. How many of you have a developed signature? We talked about the little area earlier. How many of you have a developed signature? You've been using it now. People see it. It's most of your name. All you initial painters. How many people don't sign their stuff on the front? They sign it on the back.
I've been told.
No, see, I don't want to hear that. You said you've been told.
Just recently. That's why I'm here. I'm learning.
God used to always, my mother used to always tell me God talks to you through other people. And we can dismiss it the first couple times. But hopefully when we get home, stop signing on the back. Now, I sign on the front and the back. I sign on the back because if something's circulating around, it's got my information on the back. It's got the title when it was created on the back. I can't remember it on my head. So I do that automatically. When I'm submitted to a show and it's with 50 other pieces, my information is on the back. Okay? But your signature, it's got to be really done. I have so many people's images popping to my head right now. How many of y'all paint your signatures on with Sharpie and paint markers? Like you can't even really paint your name. How many of y'all, how do you sign your work? How many of you sign your work using a paintbrush and paint? That's pretty good. How many of you are using markers or Sharpies, gold, silver, black, to sign your work? I want every artist in this room to take the time to learn how to paint your name in paint. Paint with a brush. It's a skill that will pay dividends down the line. Some of y'all, if you don't have a Sharpie, you can't sign your artwork. It sounds simple, y'all, but these things make a difference. Align all your online assets and social networks by your brand. I use these two on all of my work. Any of the socials that I have are in those names. I keep it very simple. Those are the only two ones that I use. And you want to make sure yours is simple too and repetitive. Branding versus marketing, while it's easy to combine branding and marketing together, they're quite distinct. Put simply, branding is the identity of a company, and marketing includes the tactics and strategies which communicate that vision. Those are the two differences between branding and marketing. hopefully you guys can see this. And excuse me ahead of time with the pronouns. I'm horrible with them. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm old school. Um, but this is the difference between branding and marketing. And I want you to read that. And when everybody's got it, just give me a nod. That's the biggest difference between branding and and marketing, in case you're confused about what they do. Everybody got it? Can I read it out loud? Can you come up closer? Okay, branding is why. Branding is long term. Branding builds loyalty. Branding creates value. Branding is the being. Marketing is how. Marketing is short term. Marketing generates responses. Marketing extracts value. And marketing is the doing. Two separate trains of thought. And most of you are probably doing one or the other. Okay? Marketing refers to the activities a company undertakes to promote the buying and selling of products and services. 5 basic keys to marketing. I know y'all, your eyes crossing, you're saying, oh, branding and marketing and promoting and branding, marketing and promoting. But that's the difference between me and you, is that I've taken the time to learn each one of these. And then once I learned them, I applied it to what I was doing. And once I applied it, it made my work easier, not harder. And in the ground levels of this, you're going to be doing certain parts of this in one part of your career, and then you're going to reach another part of your career where you can add other things to it. It's momentum based. But if you're not doing one of them, 2025 is a new calendar. Start implementing these things for 2025. And I'm guaranteeing you, if you implement these things in 2025, when 2026 rolls around, your chest is going to be a little bigger. You're going to feel a little more confident because you would have taken the time to learn how each one of these things work, and you'll begin to see them show up in how you do your marketing online, and most of all, in the amount of clients that start buying your work. I'm gonna let that pass. Okay, marketing for artists has its unique challenges and opportunities. Here are 5 key strategies to help you effectively market your art. Build a strong online presence. We talked about that. I'm not going to be redundant. But the most important part is share high quality images of your work, behind the scenes content, and engage your audience regularly. How many of you are shooting things with your camera, low res, and got fingers in the corners of it because you shot it outside? And I see some crazy stuff in this time with artists that I shouldn't be seeing because we're using that phone for everything, and some of y'all not using it well, and you're not using professional services too, because I think that you need to have both and know when you're going to do it, when you're going to need both. Network and collaborate. Attend art fairs, exhibitions, local art events, connect to other artists. That's the most important one. Collect with collectors. That's an important one. And potential buyers. When you collaborate with other artists, y'all, it changes everything. It demystifies things that you feel uncomfortable with. I remember when we were doing our shows back in the day, if I went with Stacey Brown and we did a show, after we started teasing each other about each other's height, he was light skinned, I was dark skinned, he had gray hair, my hair was black back then, but now he's got the final laugh. But we would always share information about what shows were coming up, what shows we did before. And that's, imagine if I have 10 more Staceys. It's almost like they would make up for the destination of some of the shows that I was doing. Very, very crucial, especially if you got artists that you trust. Because all your artist friends ain't gonna be nice to you. Some of them gonna be super competitive. We'll talk about that another time. I'm talking about the sharing part of it because a lot of times we don't understand how easy it is for us to share. But networking and collaborating is something that stops you from having to do it alone and isolated. And how much can you read to catch up on this stuff? Where do I go get the manual, short manual? Where do I get the Artists for Dummies? You don't. You get that from having 5 more artist friends. And I'm telling you, they won't let you down. And if they do, replace one of them with another artist. We talked about telling your story, but you see how marketing, promotion, some of those things have similar elements in them? This is a crucial one. It should have been number 1, but I saved it for number 4 because most of y'all are not going to understand what I'm asking you. How many of you have an email service? MailChimp, Constant Contact, one of those. Raise your hands high, please. I want everybody to see. How many of you use email? Okay. How many of you collect email addresses redundantly and repetitively? He just started back. Now, see, that's a professional artist of 30-some years telling you he's getting back on it. Let you know that we all have tasks. I am like, how can I say it without insulting anybody? I'm an email whore. I don't care about your address, your phone number. I want your email address, and I get them redundantly. How many of you write receipts and you put the person's name down and you write the amount and you get the money from them and you smile and you flip that receipt back over and you do the next person that comes up? That makes you a pimp. That means you ain't took time to even say thank you by writing down their information. So remember, that's important. At any given time, I have 15,000 names on my email list. 15,000 names on my email list. Think about that. If I do a sale right now, a desperation sale for a piece that sells for $1,500, for $500, and I send it to a list of that many people, how many options do I have to sell those pieces? I can have slippers on in my house. That's the power of email marketing. How many of you think that your website is first and the social networking is second and then email marketing is third? Okay, which one do you think is first? Email marketing is first. How many of you are focusing on email marketing? Okay, that's my biggest takeaway. If you are in this room, Poncho is saying that email marketing is number 1. It's king. It's over your website. Website is down number 3 or 4. See, some of y'all get the website and y'all go, exhale, whew, I got that done. You're just getting started because your email address is like your home address in relation to the planet Earth. People still got to find it. So they work great in tandem, but you also can't go because I said that the website is number 4 and you say, well, I ain't gonna have a website. No, doesn't work that way. You have to put each one of those pieces in place so that they can work together. And when you do that, then you're a business, because some of y'all are acting like a business and you're not even a business yet. Participate in online marketplaces like Etsy. How many of you are familiar with Etsy? How many of you sell on Etsy? Etsy is a great marketplace. There's all kinds of platforms now where you can upload your artwork, and we'll talk about that later on, and you can print your stuff on light switch covers and curtains and jackets, and I'm leery of those platforms. We'll talk about that later on. Key recommendations. These are the top 5 platforms for those of you that do not have a website. Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, WordPress, Weebly. I think the Wix is probably the one that most of y'all are using if you're trying to learn how to do it yourself. I have my website is a Shopify. It's a very comprehensive platform. It is for selling artwork, and I do a tremendous amount of sales online. That means I don't have to travel. That means I don't have to leave my house. Okay? So for those of you that are struggling with website, please take down one of those names. Investigate the easiest one for you. The second one I would say is a great one is Squarespace. How many of you already use the Square to process your sales? Squarespace would be great for you to do a store on that platform. I'm getting ready to start in 2025 a Squarespace store in addition to my Shopify store, because McDonald's don't just have one location. Cultivate an extensive image library of your work, y'all. Woo! In 1995, I had a studio fire, which devastated, and I lost everything. So I literally had to start over. My business, these two guys will tell you when the business was rolling between 1985 and 2006, everybody thought there was no tomorrow. We were making more money than we knew what to do. We were making all kinds of mistakes because we never had that kind of money before. We were making all kinds of legal mistakes, tax mistakes, you name it. That's what comes with it because so much money was available. Okay. But the image library piece is probably the thing that I lost when I had my fire. I lost everything. And I didn't have it in a secondary location. Okay. So what I'm saying to you now is how many of you create work and then you sell it and you don't take a picture of it? Don't hide, please. It helps everybody in the room if we can see your hands. How many of you do not take a picture of everything you do? How many of you shooting it with your phone? How many of you are taking it someplace to have it scanned? I take my work, I create it, I take it to my scanner, he scans it high resolution, and I get those files back. It's very expensive, but I have probably the most extensive library of most artists. That means from 1995 up to now, I've documented everything I've ever created, from sketches, drawings, everything. That digital library is very, very powerful. I get calls all the time for book covers and publication covers and articles, and I just burn it. Sometimes I can go on the computer and alter it and send it, and I'm making money from each one of those things. When you got your library, depending on especially what kind of work you do, it can be invaluable, especially for those of you enter into the realm of digital art. Abstract artists can do very, very well with a digital library. What you can do with a digital library is crazy. I even have pour artists that use acrylic pouring that are now digitizing everything they pour, and they have a library that's extensive that they can use for a multitude of different things, including products. So, cultivate an extensive library, but make it a habit to get it documented when you finish it. What happens often is that you do it, you sell it, you might need it, you got to go back to the client, they ain't gonna want to hear nothing you got to say. You know, now people are appraising work and trying to find the value of works, and now you can't remember it because I can't remember stuff I did 30 years ago till I see it. Okay, so that's why that image library is so very, very important and crucial. Don't sleep on this one. I use Animoto.com to do videos without editing experience. How many of you now, because now, what did I say we all now? Small media agencies, that means we have to know photography, we have to know video, we have to know writing, we have to do all of that. Before, all I had to do was paint. Now y'all got to do all of it, okay? But that's one of my shortcuts. Animoto costs about $49 a month, but if you need to do video slideshows, that program will have you up and running in 5 minutes. It's worth its weight in gold. I use it for all types of things. Check it out. I leaned on you about the email marketing. These are the two companies I recommend. There's Constant Contact on MailChimp. Of course, they have other companies that do the same thing. I only talk about Constant Contact because I've been with them for 20 years. Okay. One monitors what you send, the other one you pay a rate, and you can send them out every day if you want. And that's why I use Constant Contact, because they don't monitor what you send out. Okay. That's important, y'all, for all of you folks that do not have an email list. If I come back next year, all right, I'm gonna give you a shortcut. Most of you all, depending on who your carrier is, you got 500 names right now sitting in your email, and you don't even know it. So you got to take time, go through your email over the last 5 years or how long you keep them, because I'm terrible with that. I take those names, I right click on them, I copy them into Word, like Word or Notepad. I just want the text itself. I don't want all the other information, okay? Then I import that into my email program, which will keep a number for me. So it's a habit for me. If I do a show and I wrote 50 receipts is how many customers? 50. That's how fast it goes. So if you one of the ones that got on receipt books under your bed and you waiting for one day where you're going to take them email names off of that, Okay. If Najee Dorsey sends me an email and he makes the mistake of using CC and it has 100 names attached to it, I'm stealing them. That's why they make BCC, blind carbon copy. Blind carbon copy means you can't see the names. CC means you can see all the names. I get gifts every month from some of y'all. But that's how you build a list. And if it comes from Najee, I'm going to say, yeah, this is a good list. You'd be surprised how many people make that mistake. Arts agencies do it all the time. They got these young interns working for them. They send an email out, CCC, boom. It's got 200 names on it. Copy, paste, upload, and then I title that list. Now, I don't want you just getting lists to be getting lists. I want you to be sensitized to where they're coming from, how they can be utilized later, because I have one little frivolous list of names that I think are speculative, and that's where those names would go. I have collectors, and I have that one titled. I have regions covered in like Maryland, DC, Atlanta covered in my list. You can make them as detailed as you want them to be. But what I'm saying is when you start this process, start with your emails first. Arts organizations give you information like crazy, especially with artists. They don't really have a lot of respect for us. So I sometimes get 100 artists in a strand from these arts organizations. And I copy them and I put them in a list that's titled what? Artists. Because there's going to be times when I do certain events where I have to invite other artists. Invest in NFC, near field communication, digital cards like SeeMyCO.com. How many of you have seen the NFC tags, the cards, the electronic cards that have all of your information on it? Man, that's like, we got so many developments that's helping us streamline what we're doing, y'all, and that's a sleeper because it doesn't cost a lot to take advantage of that technology. Now I can give you my little card and y'all could take all my numbers and put it in your phone, but I don't do that. I'm just saying that's how powerful it is. Make sure you invest in that for yourself. Am I saying don't have a regular business card? No. How many of you don't have a business card right now? Stop playing. I know you artists are getting lazy with this business card. Y'all think it's OG, old style. Nobody does that anymore. The business card will never go out of style, y'all. Okay? But this technology here changes everything. That's mine right now. I use the company, SeeMyCompany.com. I have that in a lanyard. I have it as a business card. Now I have it as a bracelet. And I can go, when I go to certain shows, trade shows or whatever, and I'm working with people, working with artists, I just hit them with that, and all of my contents go right in their phone. Very, very powerful. Work with a professional graphic designer. Y'all, how many of you have a graphic designer? I keep like 3 or 4, and I am a graphic designer, and I still keep 4 graphic designers. The graphic designer is the one thing each one of you in this room needs. That means whatever you're getting ready to do, this person can knock out an ad, a graphic for whatever you're getting ready to do, okay? That costs money. I believe that artists, we have to have some professional fees, so you really should invest in a graphic designer. I'm telling you that now because you're going to hear this in your voice one day down the line. You're going to have a particular thing, and you're going to be needing something done, and you're going to remember, Poncho told me I need to have a graphic designer as part of my team. You have to have a graphic designer. But if you don't have a graphic designer, Canva.com, how many of y'all using Canva? I'm a graphic designer, and I got 4 graphic designers on my team, and I still use Canva. That's how powerful Canva is. It can make you a graphic designer overnight, but the secret with Canva is, and I'll say this now, don't over-design it. It's already been designed. Stop playing, stop picking the colors, stop changing the typefaces, stop. Replace the information, and it's done. See, most of y'all want to be creative and then come out looking a little weird, and you don't know why it look weird. Okay, it's already been tested. They have hired thousands of designers to design those templates. Pick the template that most resonates with you and don't change it. You can change colors, but don't change typography. That's the one where most of y'all make mistakes. You get funky on typefaces, and once you change one typeface, now you got to add another one, and it just seems off. It's going to get worse. It's going to pull you down to the bottom. No. When it get that bad, just close it out and start all over again. Do not over-design in Canva. It is already designed. And that's what you pay for. That's your graphic design fee right there. Big recommendation for y'all. Commit to posting a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for your art endeavors. Use Kickstarter.com or Indiegogo.com. How many of you have done a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign? Raise your hand high, please. Just 2 people out of all these people in this room? Okay. Crowdfunding has been around for 100 years. When black folks couldn't afford to do nothing, we used to pool our money together to do certain things together. That's how we build whole communities during that process. Crowdfunding is no different. You're going to your friends and family and saying, hey, look, I'm getting ready to do this idea, and I want you to support me by buying this thing so that I can put that money towards what I'm getting ready to do. That's what crowdfunding is, okay? Hey, y'all, what did I say? This new world we're in, you don't have to ask for money no more, unless you ain't got no friends. That's another whole session. I had to be here for 3 days on that one. Tissues, alcohol, the whole 9. Okay? But crowdfunding is the easiest way to raise money. I'm gonna give you an example. What's the chance of a gallery or museum or an entity seeing an artist has been doing this for 40 years and saying, oh, Poncho, we should do a book on him? What's the chance? It's not high. Low. Because there are 1,000 artists who've been out here for 40 years doing what I do. Okay? So I took my design team. I have a art director. I have a designer and myself. And we did my 40th retrospective book. I put it on Kickstarter.com. We raised $34,000 with my followers, my collectors, and my email list. Did you hear what I just said? Yeah. Don't believe me? Look it up. I also just did a book for Karen Buster. We did the exact same thing. She raised $24,000. If you're sitting in this room and you got a list of about 1,200 people on your mailing list, and you got, say, 300 people on your Facebook, and you got another 200 on your Instagram, you can still raise $5,000 with those numbers. If you can't raise $5,000, you don't have no friends, and you don't have no family, and you don't have no supporters, and you're taking too much time in your bubble. I'm guaranteeing you that if each one of you put a campaign up for 2025, that you can raise money for whatever you decide to raise it for. I have done probably 15 to 20 campaigns. I even have a book that y'all can look up online to get a book on crowdfunding. Single-handedly the best thing that ever happened to artists. Why would you go and compete for a grant with 12,000 other artists? Some of them don't even look like you, and you're probably not gonna win. When you could put a campaign up with your friends and family and raise the same money that you would be rat racing for. Which one would you rather do? Crowdfunding, look it up. It's there waiting for you to participate in. Utilize live broadcasting on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. StreamYard.com is a streaming platform. How many of you have already gone live before on Facebook or Instagram? All right, so back when COVID hit, something happened that was magical to benefit artists. Where they had been using Zoom and all those other platforms for business years prior, it came down to us because we were all locked in the house. I was one of the first ones to say, oh, I can go into somebody's house? Let me do a live broadcast from my studio. And I show other artists how to do the same thing. Y'all, I kid you not, on one show, we raised $10,000 for 1 hour, selling stuff off of the shelves in my studio. Now, I'm not saying you want to do that every show, but to be able to raise $10,000 online for 1 hour, just talking about artwork, it's a viable marketplace for you to participate in. You want to see what one looks like, go to YouTube, look up Larry Poncho Brown, look up Poncho-thon. I came up with a cute little name that has my signature in it. Redundant, right? I'm telling you, there's so many things available to us right now that if you want to fail as an artist, it's because you want to. StreamYard is probably the easiest platform for streaming live. People everybody's calling everything a podcast now with a video capability. Well, this is what that is. Zoom. How many of y'all done Zoom? No. Let me raise those hands up high. How many of y'all have done a Zoom? You see how many people have done Zoom? It's the same thing. So you can get online and talk with your ignorant coworkers with your picture off and don't see that you could probably turn your picture on and talk about something you want to sell. What? I have a friend that sells paparazzi jewelry. How many of y'all heard of paparazzi jewelry? Jewelry's $5, turn your neck green, doesn't matter. They can get online and sell thousands of dollars of this stuff at one time, y'all. Thousands of dollars selling $5 jewelry. And Poncho went, I can sell some art for $5. Well, what about $20? What about $40? What about $100? What about $200? Some things are right in your face, you just gotta look at them. That's what I look like on my show. You see, I'm in my studio, and the studio ain't even cleaned up. What it also gives me is the capability of putting graphics on the screen. And there's Karen Buster, my friend on the bottom. She popped, and when people would chime in, I put them right on the screen. I make my own TV show from my studio, y'all. All right, take advantage of any TED or TEDx opportunity. How many of you have done a TED Talk before in the room? That's 3 hands right in the front. If you get a chance to do a TED or TEDx, do it. If you have not done a TED or TEDx, it is a precursor to your fear of public speaking. It will kill that thing forever. 18 minutes, unscripted. You can't read off of cue cards. You just got to go. And you got to make it sense. It makes sense. It's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you get a chance to do a TED or TEDx opportunity, please do it. You're talking about content that you'll be able to use for a lifetime. If you want to see mine, just look it up. You'll find it online on YouTube. Okay, Fiverr.com is an excellent source for professional services. This is the best kept secret on the internet. All right, so I see a lot of people nodding their head and grinning. Fiverr is like a service bureau of people all over the world that specialize in a particular thing. Say, for instance, I do logos. Okay, I'll do a logo for you for $25. You put it online, and everybody gets to bid on that. You know how many logos that person's doing? So now if you say, hey, I'm looking for an illustrator for a book. Hey, I'm looking for a logo. Hey, I'm looking for an animated logo. Hey, I'm looking for a cartoon. You can go to this service bureau, and everything you punch in there is going to be on there with artists that do this for a living from all over the world. So if you're not going to have a designer, have Canva. But if you have Canva and Fiverr, what did I say we are? Media companies. All right. It's out there for you. This one doesn't apply to you. We have a thing called LED Baltimore in Baltimore where they have a 50-foot billboard and they show Maryland artists. You have not seen your stuff until you've seen it 50 feet high on a digital billboard. But if you got that digital library and there are other projects like this happening all over the country, it is a great way to get exposure. That's mine. They showed 15 of my pieces. I hired a drone videographer to shoot it. And even though it was up for 2 weeks, I have kept it for a lifetime. If you want to see that, it's on YouTube also. It's beautiful, y'all. You really can't see how big that screen is until you see it online. And these things become content for all of the other things that you're doing. All right. Remember, if you didn't document it, it did not happen. It didn't happen. Half of y'all can't remember the month. Y'all can't remember back 2 months. Definitely can't remember 6 months. But if you did it and you document it, you can repurpose that information over and over and over again. That is what makes your job easier, not harder. It's when you're trying to keep up, like, how the hell is he doing all this? I'm doing all this because I'm ahead of it, not behind it. If you're starting behind it, yeah, this is a lot. But if you add one piece and you keep adding one piece and you get a momentum. Now, if you got a slow momentum, I ain't mad at you, because older folks, personally, we want a different momentum. We're trying to move slower. But if you in your 40s to your 60s, okay, we're slowing down too. If you're 20 to 40, mash that gas pedal. And a lot of y'all not mashing the gas pedal. Y'all listen to me say, oh, I want to slow down. And y'all go, oh, Poncho said he wants to slow down. And you, no. I have built a momentum that no matter what speed I pick, you'll never catch me. With all the other things that I mentioned in this presentation, that's how far ahead of you I am. And I don't have to think about it. The same thing will happen to you once you get a baseline of information together and you start. Have I talked much about your artwork yet? Thank you. I wanted to do that because I wanted to have a marketing conversation where it's not personal to you and your artwork. See, y'all thinking, oh, maybe my work is this good. No, this information is universal, whether you're good or bad. And I know some folks that's bad, but they're doing all the stuff that's in this presentation, and they're killing it. Understand that. Back in the day, QR codes was something none of us wanted to do. Oh, that was just another, I ain't got time for that. Y'all go into the store during COVID and they put that QR code up and you was like, no, just bring me a menu. Bring me something on paper. But now, because of all the things we've gone through, that is a new language for us now. You can use QR codes for everything. Start using QR codes. There's a fast generator online you can get. There are tons of programs you can lock on your phone that can write QR codes that link to anywhere. That code can be linked to whatever you have that has a link to it. You can lock that to your email page. You can lock that to a product that's on your website. You can talk about your artwork in that. If you got a video online, do that same coding system. This coding system is going to explode like crazy in the next decade. Check it out. It's easy to do. Utilize 3D virtual exhibitions to display your art. Use Art Steps, Lapendor, or 3D Vista. How many of you have ever seen virtual exhibitions online? How many of you don't like them yet? Okay, I also do Matterport, which is a 3D program. It allows me to go in and 3D map, like I could map Najee's gallery, and y'all would be able to go through here digitally, or if you got VR headsets, you'll actually be in this room. So now when you're worried about getting your stuff online or getting a show or getting a group show, now you could do a virtual exhibition and not have to do any of that? Okay, I'm confused. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And it's up 24 hours a day till you take it down. You got to think outside the box, y'all. And then what happens is that y'all have heard that term, thinking outside the box, so much as y'all don't even react to it. What happens when you talk about removing the box? Just remove the box, y'all. There's so many opportunities out here. Y'all got to grab them. They're not going to grab you. That's a big one. This is I don't know if it's going to play for me. That's what a 3D exhibition looks like. This is a 2-floor gallery that I shot with a 3D camera. And right now I'm showing you the video of it, but you can actually go through this thing one thing at a time in front of each piece if you want to do that. Very, very powerful technology, y'all. Does that seem advanced? It's not. And it's very, very affordable. Okay. Investigate utilizing a professional art management service like artarchive.com. Now, this is for my advanced people. If you have an extensive portfolio and you want to database it, I use Artwork Archive to do my databasing of all of my original works. I also keep track of my collectors and everything in that space. I market this to people that are looking for originals. It's separate from my website. It has information in it that I would not put in my website, but it's a great place to start harvesting and this is for my collectors too. This also will work for you. If you have a sizable collection, I say anything over 10 pieces is a sizable collection. But Investigate Art Archive is a great place to go. All right, y'all, the truth about print publishing. Know the pros and cons of choosing the right reproduction medium from short run or to mass produce your images. A lot of people are confused about reproductions right now. The industry wanted y'all to be confused about it. I'll lay that on you. This includes offset lithography, digital printing, G-clay technology, and any other traditional printmaking methods like woodcuts, liner cuts, etchings, etc. All of these replication methods are crucial to the art business, and they allow you to expand your reach. My work, for instance, right now is over 500,000 homes. I could go to sleep, I could die and come back, and most of y'all will never make 500,000. How did I do that? Because during that period between 1985 and 2006, we were creating affordable art that could be dispensed to anyone. And my man right here, Lamar, I think we did his first show. I sold a piece called Black is Black. I think we might have sold 50 copies of that damn print in his gallery. People stood in line. They stood in line for it. Yeah. And so we were doing images specifically for people to consume. That means the price was affordable. It was $40. Come on, who can't afford $40? But that's how I got my name out there. I started publishing my work in that period of time. I started going to printers and having them reproduce my work because what happened is I got my first publishing deal. My first publishing deal was a nice little contract that showed me that I was going to be making 10%. 10%, y'all. That's a good publishing deal, 10%. What? I don't know about y'all. I'm from the streets of Baltimore, and I may not be that good in math, but 90 over 10, I get that. Explain to me how it's going to be 90 over 10. Well, was there some promise in being with a publisher? Yeah. But then I had to do what? Start publishing. So when I started signing contracts, I started publishing my own work at the same time. Okay. I'm going to run through a few more. We're going to get ready to wrap up. This is an hour presentation. We're probably a little bit over. This whole presentation is on YouTube. You can look up. It's called Keys to Self-Marketing, Self-Promotion. And if you want to see the first presentation, that's out there as well. It's kind of a checklist of what you should and should not be doing at this point. This is... if you can find a way to incorporate 1/3 of what was mentioned tonight in 2025, these things don't take a lot of time. They just take intention. I'm going to get my email address. I'm going to have my website. I'm going to do X. That's how you got to think. You can't think about it because most of you in here are thinking and overthinking. Overthinking is a state of zombie land. And your brain is going to be satisfied because it feels like it's working on it because you're thinking about it. Isn't that crazy? You ain't doing nothing to sit still. We're at a time now, as we wrap up, where we're so distracted. 2/3 of people in this room don't turn their phone off at night like y'all first responder or something. I don't get that. No, COVID taught us a lot of things, y'all, and we're not that important. There's some other things that are more important. There are other commodities that come before what we do. So I'm not lessening who we are. What we do for the world is very, very important. But y'all need to understand what's at stake. Your mental health is at stake. Enlightening your community is at stake. And if you can take this job more seriously, everything that God intends, you're going to get through your work.